Success. The human's vital signs are stabilizing, Dr. Corbin announced, his 3 eyes blinking in sequence as he monitored the translucent pod containing their experimental subject. Phlebe, make a note that Resurrection Protocol 7B works on humans. Apparently, they're not as fragile as we thought. Assistant Phlebe's tentacles danced across the holographic keyboard. Noting successful resurrection of human specimen XJ-421, retrieved from Earth cryogenic facility. She paused, squinting her singular eye at the pale human male floating in the aquamarine fluid. Should I include that his cellular integrity is only at 87%? That's below our ethical standards for most sentient species. Dr. Corbin waved a dismissive appendage. Humans barely qualify as sentient, Phlebe. Besides, this one was already dead when we found him. We're improving his situation considerably. He leaned closer to the pod, his scales glimmering under the lab's harsh lighting. The Science Council will forgive a few ethical shortcuts when we present them with the first successfully revived human specimen. The human, Marcus Wilson, according to his cryogenic pod's identification, twitched slightly, bubbles escaping from his mouth. His medical chart indicated he died from a rare neurological condition at age 34 in the year 2027. Now, aboard the research vessel Empirical Knowledge, he was about to become the first human to experience interstellar travel. Not that he'd be conscious for most of it. Drain the resurrection fluid, Dr. Corbin ordered. Let's see if his brain functions are intact. As the liquid drained, Marcus's body slumped against the pod's curved wall. His chest rose and fell steadily, a good sign. Dr. Corbin and Phlebe exchanged hopeful glances. Specimen appears stable, Phlebe noted. Brain activity is unusual. Much higher than baseline human readings. Dr. Corbin frowned. Probably a side effect of the resurrection process. It should normalize. Marcus's eyes snapped open. Both aliens froze. This wasn't supposed to happen for at least another 12 orbits. Where am I? Marcus's voice was raspy from disuse, but remarkably coherent. His gaze, initially unfocused, sharpened as he took in the aliens staring at him. Oddly, he didn't seem particularly surprised by their appearance. You're aboard the research vessel Empirical Knowledge, Dr. Corbin said slowly, enunciating each word as if speaking to a child. I am Dr. Corbin, Chief Xenobiologist. We have revived you for scientific study. Marcus blinked slowly. Ha! Neat. Dr. Corbin and Phlebe exchanged confused glances. This wasn't the typical reaction they'd expected from a primitive species encountering advanced aliens for the first time. You're not alarmed? Phlebe asked tentatively. Should I be? Marcus stretched his arms, wincing slightly. I mean, I was pretty sure I was dead, so this is already an improvement. He glanced around the laboratory with curious eyes. Though I have to say, I expected resurrection to be more cloudy. With harps or something. Dr. Corbin cleared his throat. Yes, well, you were dead. Cryogenically preserved on Earth. We've revived you using our advanced technology. Cool, cool, Marcus nodded absently, his attention now fixed on something neither alien could see. His expression changed subtly, becoming more rigid, more commanding. When he spoke again, his voice carried an unmistakable French accent. This vessel, it is under your command, monsieur. Dr. Corbin blinked in confusion. Yes, I am the senior scientist aboard. Excellent. Marcus clapped his hands together and attempted to stand, stumbling slightly in the pod. Then I shall require your finest quarters and a detailed map of your battle capabilities. Battle capabilities? Phlebe echoed, frantically taking notes. Mais oui. One cannot properly plan a campaign without knowing one's resources. Marcus placed one hand inside his medical gown, adopting a peculiar pose. I have made a career of snatching victory from the jaws of defeat. With your vessel, I shall finally conquer the English once and for all. Dr. Corbin's three eyes widened in alarm. Subject displaying signs of delusional behavior, he whispered to Phlebe. Possible neurological damage from the resurrection process. I am not delusional. Marcus, or whoever he thought he was, snapped. I am Napoleon Bonaparte, Emperor of France, and you, monsieur, have the honor of facilitating my triumphant return. The resurrection fluid must have contaminated his neural pathways, Dr. Corbin muttered, reaching for a syringe of stabilizing agent. This is a known side effect in lower species, confusion, false memories. I demand to see your captain immediately. Marcus as Napoleon shouted, attempting to climb out of the pod but failing as his legs gave way. These accommodations are unacceptable for an emperor. Phlebe nervously approached the pod. Mr. Wilson, please remain calm. You're experiencing confusion due to the resurrection process. Wilson. Marcus blinked, his posture suddenly changing. The imperial bearing vanished, replaced by a look of genuine confusion. Who's Wilson? He glanced around, seeming to truly notice his surroundings for the first time. And where the hell am I? Last thing I remember was being in Vegas, 1957. Had a hell of a night at the Sands with Frank and Dean. Dr. Corbin stared, dumbfounded. Fascinating. The subject appears to be cycling through personality states. This is unprecedented. He turned to Phlebe, excitement overriding concern. Start recording everything. The Science Council will want complete documentation. Over the next few hours, Marcus cycled through no fewer than 7 distinct personalities: Napoleon, a 1950s Vegas gambler named Lucky Jim Donovan, a medieval knight called Sir Percival, a 1920s Chicago gangster, Cleopatra, that one was particularly interesting, a 16th-century Chinese navigator, and briefly, a prehistoric human who could only grunt and tried to start a fire using the medical equipment. Each personality shift was preceded by a moment of confusion, followed by complete conviction in the new identity. Most concerningly, each personality seemed to have complete and detailed memories appropriate to their era. This shouldn't be possible, Dr. Corbin muttered, reviewing the brain scans. Humans don't have the neural capacity for genetic memory storage like the Vrexians. These can't be actual memories. Perhaps it's some sort of defense mechanism? Phlebe suggested. His mind creating identities to cope with the trauma of resurrection. Before Dr. Corbin could respond, Marcus, currently in his Cleopatra phase, fixed him with a regal stare. You are not the first star travelers to visit Earth, you know, he said in a haughty tone. In my time, they came in golden ships and taught us the secrets of the pyramids. Dr. Corbin froze. What did you say? Oh yes, Marcus continued, examining his nails with queenly disdain. We've been hosting visitors from the stars since before we built our first cities. Did you think you were special? A sly smile crossed his face. We've always known about you. All of you. Dr. Corbin and Phlebe exchanged alarmed glances. This was classified information. The Galactic Science Council had been observing Earth for millennia, but this was never disclosed to humans. You're confused, Dr. Corbin said firmly. These are false memories. Marcus laughed, a sound that somehow combined Cleopatra's regal amusement with something older and wiser. Are they? Then how do I know about the observation post on the dark side of Earth's moon? Or the underwater facility in what humans call the Mariana Trench? Phlebe dropped her data pad with a clatter. How could he possibly? We've always known, Marcus said, his personality shifting again, but not to someone new, to something more integrated, more complete. Humans have a special talent, you see. We remember. Not just our own lives, but all lives that came before. Your resurrection process didn't damage my brain, it unlocked it. He stood up, steady on his feet now, confidence radiating from him. Humans have been playing dumb for centuries, letting you study us while we study you right back. Those abductions your scientists perform. We volunteer for them. Those primitive reactions to your presence. All an act. Dr. Corbin backed away from the pod. That's impossible. Your species is barely space-capable. Publicly, yes, Marcus smiled. We find it safer that way. The galaxy is full of predatory species, after all. Better to appear primitive until you're ready to show your full hand. He tapped his temple. And our full capabilities have always been right here, locked in our genetic memory, waiting for the right key. You're bluffing, Dr. Corbin said, though uncertainty had crept into his voice. Am I? Marcus's eyes gleamed with ancient intelligence. Then how do I know the access codes to your propulsion system? Or that your species, the Xendarii, are currently under probation with the Galactic Council for 3 previous violations of non-interference protocols? Dr. Corbin's scales paled to a sickly yellow. Security to Lab 7, he shouted into his communicator. Specimen containment breach. Marcus sighed dramatically. Always the same reaction. You'd think advanced species would be more, well, advanced. With casual confidence, he stepped fully out of the pod and stretched. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have a ride to catch. Restrain him. Dr. Corbin ordered as 2 security officers burst into the lab. But Marcus was already moving, his movements fluid and precise as if he'd trained for this specific scenario. He ducked under the first officer's restraining arm, used the alien's momentum to flip him into the second, and made for the door. Don't let him reach the escape pods. Phoebe shrieked, finally recovering from her shock. Too late, Marcus called over his shoulder, already halfway down the corridor. We've been mapping the interior layout of Xendarii vessels for decades. I could navigate this ship blindfolded. What followed was the most humiliating 17 minutes in Dr. Corbin's distinguished career. The supposedly primitive human evaded every security measure, bypassed locked doors with ease, and displayed intimate knowledge of systems that should have been completely alien to him. Worst of all, he provided running commentary the entire time. You really should upgrade your security protocols, Marcus called out as he effortlessly hacked a door panel. This encryption is practically Paleolithic by our standards. By the time the ship's alarms blared announcing an unauthorized escape pod launch, Dr. Corbin had collapsed into a chair, all 3 eyes staring blankly at the monitoring screen. How did this happen? He whispered as they watched the small pod accelerate away from the ship. A communication channel opened on the nearest screen. Marcus's face appeared, grinning broadly. Thanks for the resurrection, document. The Earth Intelligence Service has been trying to get an agent aboard a Xendarii vessel for years. You saved us a lot of trouble by bringing me to you. But you were dead, Phoebe protested weakly. Was I? Marcus winked. Or was that just another part of the plan? You'd be amazed what humans can do with a little specialized training and some good old-fashioned acting skills. His expression grew more serious. Here's some friendly advice, report honestly to your science council. Tell them humans are aware of galactic society and ready for formal contact. The pretense isn't necessary anymore. The screen went dark as the escape pod engaged its faster-than-light drive, another system Marcus shouldn't have been able to operate. Dar. Corbin stared at the empty screen, then at the abandoned resurrection pod, then back at the screen. Well, he said finally, at least we proved the resurrection protocol works. Phoebe's single eye narrowed. That's what you're taking from this? What else can I do? Dr. Corbin threw his appendages up in exasperation. We've just discovered that humanity, supposedly a primitive species barely worth studying, has not only been aware of extraterrestrial life for millennia but has been conducting counterintelligence operations against us. And they apparently possess some form of genetic memory that our resurrection process enhanced instead of damaged. He slumped in his chair. My career is over. Look on the bright side, Phoebe offered, attempting comfort, you may have just facilitated first official contact with a species far more advanced than we realized. That's supposed to make me feel better. Well, it's better than being remembered as the scientist who accidentally started an interstellar incident. As their ship turned to head back to Xendarii space, neither of them noticed the small data probe that had detached from the escape pod, silently recording their every word and transmitting it back to Earth. Somewhere in a classified underground facility, a team of human intelligence officers celebrated as Marcus Wilson's vital signs appeared on their monitors, along with an incoming data stream that would keep their xenoanthropologists busy for years. Operation Memory Collector is a success, the mission director announced. Someone get this man a beer for when he lands. He's earned it. On the screen, Marcus's escape pod streaked toward Earth, carrying centuries of accumulated secrets and one very smug human who, technically speaking, had never actually died in the first place. 6 months after Operation Memory Collector, Marcus Wilson sat in a sunlit conference room at the United Earth Intelligence headquarters, sipping coffee and watching alien diplomats file nervously into the chamber. The Xendarii delegation, led by none other than Dr. Corbin himself, looked particularly uncomfortable. "Nice to see you again, Doc," Marcus called out, raising his mug in greeting. "Like what we've done with the place?" Dr. Corbin's scales shifted to an embarrassed purple. "Mr. Wilson. You're looking alive. Funny how that works out." Marcus winked at Phlebe, who was trying to hide behind her data pad. "How's the Science Council taking the news that humans have been running a centuries-long counterintelligence operation?" "About as well as you'd expect," Dr. Corbin muttered. 3 council members molted prematurely from stress. The Earth Intelligence Director, Admiral Helena Parker, cleared her throat. "Perhaps we should begin the formal proceedings." Marcus leaned back in his chair as the diplomats settled in. The room, deliberately designed to showcase human technological advancement without being intimidating, featured holographic displays of Earth's history, including carefully selected footage of alien encounters dating back to ancient Egypt. "Welcome to Earth," Admiral Parker began. "Officially, this time." A nervous titter ran through the alien delegation. "We appreciate your willingness to establish formal diplomatic relations," she continued. "Though we regret the unconventional circumstances that led to this meeting." Dr. Corbin shot a glare at Marcus, who responded with an innocent smile. "What we don't understand," the Xendarii ambassador interrupted, "is why maintain the charade for so long? If humans have been aware of galactic society, why pretend otherwise?" Marcus set down his coffee. "Have you met us? Humans are naturally suspicious creatures. When we discovered we weren't alone in the universe, our first instinct wasn't to announce ourselves, it was to learn everything we could about potential threats." "You considered us threats?" Phlebe asked, sounding hurt. "We considered everyone threats until proven otherwise," Admiral Parker clarified. "A species doesn't survive as long as ours has without healthy paranoia." "And the genetic memory?" Dr. Corbin asked, his scientific curiosity temporarily overriding his embarrassment. "How is that possible?" Marcus tapped his temple. "We've always had it, buried deep in our neural architecture. Most humans never access it consciously, they get fragments in dreams or déjà vu. But some of us are trained to unlock those pathways. Your resurrection process," Admiral Parker added, "acted like a key, opening doors that were already there." The Xendarii ambassador's appendages twitched nervously. "So every human potentially carries the collective memory of your entire species?" "Only the important bits," Marcus said with a grin. "I can't tell you what I had for breakfast 2 lifetimes ago." As the formal negotiations continued, Marcus found himself paired with Dr. Corbin during the refreshment break. "You know," Marcus said conversationally, "your resurrection technology could revolutionize human medicine. We'd be interested in a knowledge exchange." Dr. Corbin's eyes narrowed. "After you humiliated me and stole state secrets?" "I prefer to think of it as expediting first contact." Marcus shrugged. Besides, you did technically kidnap and experiment on me. You weren't really dead, were you? Let's just say I was mostly dead. There's a big difference between mostly dead and all dead. Dr. Corbin sighed, his scales settling into a resigned blue. The Science Council is particularly interested in studying human genetic memory. Perhaps we could arrange an exchange. Now you're talking. Marcus clinked his coffee mug against Dr. Corbin's drinking vessel. To interstellar cooperation. And to no more surprises, Dr. Corbin added pointedly. Marcus just smiled. If there was one thing humans excelled at beyond remembering, it was surprising the hell out of everyone around them. The galaxy wasn't ready for what humanity had in store, but they'd learn. They'd adapt. After all, that was the other thing humans were exceptionally good at.